Hi, folks. You may be hearing a lot about YRefi these days.
Student loans are now sitting at $1.8 trillion. Montana State. How's everybody doing tonight? All right. I love it. I love it. My name is Lane Schoenberger. I am the Chief Investment Officer and a founding partner of YRefi. And I just got to say, I am so thrilled to be here tonight at this historic time and carrying on Charlie's legacy, because now we are all Charlie. So we're here tonight, we're standing at a crossroads, and more than ever, it is crucial to have leaders who speak the truth boldly. We need to get back to our conservative values. We need to invite God back into our hearts, our homes, our schools, our businesses, our government. We need strong families and people who tell the truth and are willing to work hard for what they want. And that, I should say this, and so much more is what Charlie was all about. I think you can all agree with that, can't you? This is what he stood for, and the reason why YRefi stands in solidarity with Turning Point and their mission. It's through powerful, thoughtful voices like Charlie Kirk and Turning Point that demonstrated a simple fact. He cared about you, and you, and you. He cared about all of you. He wants you to succeed. And that's why we're all here. This is the turning point, America. We're looking at it right now. With Turning Point, you have a voice and the power to define your family's future in what is, without a doubt, the greatest country on this planet. Turning Point is one of the most influential voices in the media today, and we at YRefi fully support and the work they're doing, and will continue to fight alongside the patriot of Turning Point to save our country and our youth. As I mentioned earlier, we're standing at a crossroads. We have a decision to make. The question is, do we stand idly by doing nothing, or do we take action and address the problems that we have? Like Charlie at YRefi, we understand that your future and ours are at stake. There are too many reasons to explain tonight why our country is drowning in debt, but I think we can all agree that the government is probably the culprit. When the government opens up its purse strings, the cost of goods and services goes up. It's basic economics. You're here at college learning about economics, right? That's how it works. So let's talk about one part of the problem. The problem that many in this room are facing, or if you're not facing it today, you will soon be facing it probably. It's student loan debt. So let me give you a quick statistic. In January of 2025, student loan debt in America was at $1.8 trillion. That's 45 million Americans that are in debt. Both federal and private loans. Most of that is federal, by the way. The only way to solve the student loan crisis is to get the government out of the lending business. Return the control to the private markets. And I'll just say, if history has taught us anything in this country, if you allow capitalism to address a problem, the solution will very quickly be found. So my partner and I, we founded YRefi on the business because what we saw was millions of young people graduating with massive college debt, insurmountable student loan debt, with no clear path to repay it. In many cases, parents or grandparents selflessly co-sign these student loans, driven by the simple desire to ensure that their child or grandchild received a college education with the hope of providing for their family and giving something more. Secure future. Sadly, borrowers who fall behind in their payments or default have very few options. There's nothing out there. Many of the stories we hear about students are drowning in debt are heartbreaking. I've done a lot of those interviews, and I can tell you, they will tear you up. Parents and grandparents who co-sign the loan only to find out there was a problem when the collection calls started. It's tragic, and it creates a tremendous amount of strife in these families. So if you're paying back your loans and you're in good shape, God bless you. Keep doing it. Get out of debt quickly. work towards getting that debt completely wiped away. On the other hand, if you find yourself in trouble, please take a moment and check out YRefi. We're here to help you. We are not a traditional lender. We do not underwrite on FICO score. And we understand the borrower stories. We're simply looking for a way you're just simply looking for a way to pay back the debt with dignity. Well, we gave it to them. So currently, we only work with borrowers that have private student loans. Someday, maybe we'll have the opportunity to work with this administration and help them figure out the federal student loan problem. Cross your fingers and pray for that one. And then I'd like to end with this. If my partner and I believe in capitalism and the American dream, and because of that, in lieu of taking institutional capital to do what we do, we decided to invite accredited investors to invest and be a part of YRefi. So I'm going to end on this. If you're interested in learning more about investing with YRefi, check us out at investyrefy.com. It's invest, the letter Y, REFY.com. And if you're a borrower and you're in trouble and you need help, check us out at yrefi.com. Hopefully you never need my services. I'm going to be honest with you, because if you do, you're in trouble. Now, you're here to see some really amazing speakers. Who's here to see maybe Vivek, maybe the governor of Montana? All right. Well, I'm going to stand down. I'm going to invite the next speaker up here. I'd like to say thank you very much for having me here. Montana's beautiful. You have an amazing campus. Enjoy tonight, everybody. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Chapter President of TPUSA, Montana State University, Eliana Nelson.
Good evening. Wow. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. Our chapter here at Montana State University has been blown away by the response from the community for this event. So many people have been so kind and amazing. We'd like to take a moment to thank security and law enforcement, not only for their amazing help today working to keep us safe, but also for their diligence and hard work every day, putting their lives on the line for us. I could not continue without thanking a few more instrumental people to our chapter. Thank you, TPUSA staff. You all have been there for us week in and week out. You have been so supportive of our chapter here and have helped us grow to what we are today. You're willing to work with us and support us in our ambitious goals. And most of all, thank you, Turning Point USA, for supporting our chapter and giving us the resources and training to pull off an event of this size. If you are interested in starting a chapter, please visit the Turning Point tables outside, the Get Involved tables, or go to tpusa.com/getinvolved. We would love to get you plugged in. Finally, we encourage you to attend our biggest event of the year, America Fest, this December in Phoenix, Arizona. This is an event that you do not want to miss. Now, I am honored to share a message from Senator Daines. Charlie was a dear friend, and we communicated frequently. My last text message to him was this past August 8th. When I sent him a picture I took at the White House of the peace agreement signing ceremony with President Trump, the President of Azerbaijan, and Prime Minister of Armenia. Azerbaijan and Armenia have been in a war for 35 years. Charlie replied back with all caps, phenomenal. My last text to Charlie was Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers. May we continue to honor Charlie's life by standing firmly and passionately in the fight for freedom, because that's exactly what Charlie would have wanted. With that said, Now, with that said, please join me in honoring Charlie Kirk by holding up the rally sign on your chair for a photo, and if you don't have a sign, yell and give us energy. For Charlie. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll get started in a moment.
Please welcome Governor Greg Gianforte.
Hello, Montana. It is an honor to be with you tonight and also to welcome Turning Point USA back to Bozeman. Please join me in prayer. Dear Lord, Maker of the universe, perfect and good God, we recognize your sovereignty over our lives and all of life's circumstances. We are thankful for your provision and plan for each and every one of us. Lord, tonight we grieve the loss of our friend Charlie Kirk. We remember and lift up Erica, their children, and all the Turning Point staff. Please comfort them at this difficult time of mourning. Lord, we are thankful for each and every soul that is here with us tonight and those that are joining us online as we gather to celebrate and continue the great work of your servant, Charlie. Lord, we pray tonight that this tragedy could truly be a turning point for our nation. Turn us away from divisiveness, separation, and violence, and toward engagement, respectful dialogue, and reconciliation. Lord, help us to know you and your ways. You promise in your word that you will work all things together for good for those that love you and are called according to your purpose. We hang on that promise for your glory and our benefit. In the name of Jesus, amen. Well, it is great to join you tonight as we continue the mission that Charlie started a little over a decade ago. My wife Susan and I first met Charlie 13 years ago. He was 18 years old. We were grateful to get to know Charlie and host him in Montana and to our home many times. Charlie always was eager to come to Montana. One spring, Charlie and I spent 3 days together, just the two of us, hiking up in Highlight Canyon. Since his assassination, I have thought of that time and our friend often. Susan and I were honored to help provide financial support for Charlie during the early days of Turning Point. In fact, he told us once, a number of years ago, that Susan and I actually wrote him the second check that Turning Point ever received. And we've supported Charlie and Turning Point ever since. We loved Charlie and Turning Point's mission of faith, freedom, and love of country. You know this. He was fearless and persuasive. He went where he was not welcome and engaged respectfully in dialogue. He gave voice to those who had been shouted down and canceled. He spoke truth. He gave all of us courage. He will be sorely missed, but the work of Turning Point USA continues and has been amplified by his passing. The question for each of us tonight is, how do we continue Charlie's work? I want to suggest there are 4 things we can do, each and every one of us. The first way to honor Charlie Kirk's legacy is to pursue faith in God. Charlie said, and I quote, "I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. The most important thing is my faith," end quote. Why would he say that? For Christians, our faith is our foundation. It is our rock. For those that know and love Jesus, faith in him provides peace during the storms of life, acceptance in the face of our failures, and unconditional love that can be found nowhere else. Scripture says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. As a young man, I have to say that was a hard lesson for me to learn. I thought I was in charge of my life. Boy, I was wrong. As I worked harder and harder to control the outcomes of my life, I got more and more frustrated. It was only when I accepted Christ that I realized the only things I can control are my attitude and my effort. The rest is in God's hands. Maybe you have felt or are feeling that same frustration that I felt. Jesus will take it away. Who here knows Jesus? Raise your hand. Praise God. Let me just say, if you did not raise your hand right now, one way you can honor Charlie is to seek out someone here in this audience who did raise their hand. Ask them all of your hard questions. Seek the truth. Search the Bible, and then do what Erica Kirk recommended when she first addressed the nation. Find a Bible-believing church and start attending. You'll be glad you did. The second way we can honor Charlie is to seek truth and understanding. Charlie was not a college graduate. He educated himself, and frankly, better than most college graduates. He disciplined himself to learn economics, history, philosophy, theology. He read what the great minds had written. He studied the Bible. And then he challenged what he learned against the thoughts of others who disagreed with him in respectful debate. Charlie knew what many readers know. History tends to repeat itself. And if we want to chart a course for the future as leaders, and I see many future leaders down here in front, we have to understand the past. To honor Charlie, I invite you all to join the great conversation. About 20 years ago, I started a reading journal. It's just a spiral-bound notebook that I keep in my bedroom. And every time I finish a book, I write down the date, the title, and the author. I push myself to read at least 50 books per year, almost exclusively nonfiction. I find it stranger than fiction. As you read, Authors reference other writers and works that have influenced them. Those are the threads of the great conversation. Follow them. You might ask, where should I start? That's easy. Charlie left us a list. Just Google Charlie Kirk's book recommendations. Start there and follow the threads. The third way we can honor Charlie is to fall in love, get married, and raise a family. Those were Charlie's exact words. If you want purpose in your life, get married and raise a family. Few things in this life can bring more joy and fulfillment, much more than a successful career which will fade away. Charlie loved Erica and his 2 young children. Staying married and raising a family is not easy. In fact, it's really, really hard. But few God-ordained institutions can bring more joy. Susan and I have been married for 37 years. And we raised our 4 children right here in Bozeman, Montana. I could not have done what we have done together in business or public service without Susan at my side. She is my partner, my dearest friend, and I love her completely. We love each one of our children unconditionally. We pray for them every day. Take Charlie's advice and don't miss out on God's gift of marriage and family in your life. The fourth and final way we can honor Charlie is to love our neighbors and engage. When we accept Christ as our Savior and we start to understand God's perspective from the Bible, we learn to see every human being as created in the image of God. Each individual has inherent worth, value, and purpose. This perspective permeated every interaction that Charlie had. When you see every individual as having intrinsic worth and nobility, you love them. You seek to understand and engage with them. Charlie loved every person he interacted with, even the people that were nasty and not respectful to him. But that's God's plan for each one of us. Dallas Willard called it the divine conspiracy. God's plan for the world is to overcome evil with good. Charlie did that. The Bible says, the light shines in the darkness, but the darkness did not overcome it. What is that light? The Bible tells us it's Jesus. Charlie did not know his assassin, but I have no doubt that he loved him. At the memorial, Erica said Charlie went to campuses specifically to engage young men just like the man who killed him. Erica, knowing God's plan and an astounding act of Christian forgiveness, forgave the shooter even after he took her husband and the father of their children. Jesus said, "Love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you." Do what Charlie did. Love your neighbor, even if you disagree with them. Are some of your neighbors hard to love? Pray for them. God will change your heart. We must also engage face to face. We cannot and should not retreat into the dark corners of social media. Seek out people with different views. Engage them in respectful, in-person dialogue. Go get a coffee. Jordan Peterson said, "Go into every conversation expecting to learn something." I think that's good advice. I try and follow it in my own life. One other quick comment about social media. Don't get sucked in. It's very addictive. Charlie disconnected and turned off his cell phone at least one day a week, so it did not get an upper hand in his life. We should all do the same. My friend and fellow Governor Spencer Cox said it very well recently, and I quote, "Log off, turn off, go outside, touch grass, laugh with your friends, hug a family member, serve your neighbors. Remember, what happens online is not reality," end quote. That's another way we can honor Charlie. I personally think that after the salvation promise of the Bible, the next greatest promise in Scripture is Romans 8:28, which says, "All things work together for good for those that love God and are called according to his purposes." The word is clear. It says all things work together for good, even tragic, evil things. God promises to use them all for his glory and our good. He's doing that with Charlie's tragic death. But the baton has now been passed to us. It's our obligation to pick it up and carry it forward. We are all Charlie now. In the words of Pete Hegseth, "Well done, Charlie. We've got it from here." I hope you'll join me in that. As I conclude, please join me again in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for Charlie Kirk and his work here on earth. Please give Erica the strength and wisdom she needs and surround her with people to support and uphold her. We pray for the Turning Point team and the tremendous opportunity in front of them. For each person within my hearing, to honor Charlie's life, I pray that we pursue you with vigor, seek truth and understanding in our lives, have the blessing of our own family, and love our neighbors as ourselves. And Lord, we pray, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. In the name of Jesus, amen. Thank you.
My name is Charlie Kirk, and I love America because I love talking with people I disagree with. Started an organization that's now in 1,000+ campuses to save the greatest culture and country ever to exist.
Our family's divided. We're divided the same way the nation is divided. Will anything ever be remedied? A nation divided against itself will not stand, neither will a family divided against itself.
Why do you think your son is conservative? You as a father should listen to your son.
I used to be, at one point, on my father's side. Upon doing my own research and seeing things firsthand, I've switched sides. We talk every day about politics to the point where it's divided us.
Father-son divide is more important than politics. Really try to come down at what generational perspective do they have. Never let politics get in the way of the beautiful relationship between father and son.
And my question for you is, do you have any hate against the LGBT community?
How could I hate that which I have a heart for? I might not agree at that for some of the lifestyle choices that some people make, but of course not. And if someone said, Charlie, what's your view on marriage? I say, I believe marriage is between one man and one woman. Do I have hate in my heart for somebody that doesn't choose the lifestyle that I believe that God laid out in the scriptures? Of course not.
What's this big for?
I go around universities and have challenging conversations because that's what is so important to our country, is to find our disagreements respectfully, because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens. You could see that happen all across the world.
What motivates you to come out here?
Well, because I love talking to people I disagree with. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens. Because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity.
First, I just want to say I don't agree with you on a lot of stuff, but I really respect, and I think you don't agree with me on a lot of stuff, but I really respect that you'll have a dialogue. I think one of the big problems in this country right now is, like, people can't have a dialogue, and people, like, don't even know how to, like, have a dialogue and use logic and, like, have an actual argument like you do. So how do we improve that as a country? How do you think we get more people that can argue like on both sides of the aisle?
I think this event is a great example of it, right? I think that this event is, we need to have differing opinions. We need to have people that don't share the same worldview and see which one is better and try to find common bond. You should have your own discussions like this every day. You should try to model it and try to have, back and forth, and that's what makes the country strong and great. Civil dialogue. Joining us now is the next governor of Ohio. Congratulations to my friend and great patriot, Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek, welcome to the program.
I love Montana. I love you guys. Thank you for the warm welcome. I love this state. It is one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth. I came here, I love this. I came here straight from a hike at Lava Lake. I think we bit off 6 miles, a little faster than we could chew. But we were here actually only a few months ago in June, enjoying the beautiful views of the mountains in Dillon, not far from where we are right now, with our friend Charlie Kirk, actually. He and I were there for an event together, and it is good, though in a much more emotional state, to come back to commemorate him. And I just want to say before we get started to Governor Gianforte, I know you did a great job. Really appreciate your warm welcome. You're lucky to lead this beautiful state, and this beautiful state is lucky to have your leadership as well. So thank you. And give your governor a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. So we get together today in remembrance of actually 2 different tragedies. Today's October 7th. 2 years ago today, a group of terrorists abroad killed 1,200 innocent human beings in Israel. And on September 10th here at home, a terrorist in Utah assassinated our friend Charlie Kirk while he was peacefully speaking on a college campus like the one where we are right now. We're on a college campus tonight. We remember exactly that tragedy of Charlie Kirk, and for years, college students with conservative views, like many of you, were taught to shut up, sit down, and keep their views to themselves. But thanks to one man, I give this to one man above everybody else, thanks to one man, over the last year, we reached a new dawn in this country. Young conservatives, like many of you, started to feel free to speak in the open again as proud Americans. You showed up at the ballot box last November in unprecedented droves to re-elect Donald Trump to his 2nd term as U.S. president. You all did that. You made that happen. And yet it was less than a year after that victory that the man who inspired you to show up was assassinated in cold blood on the very first event of the campus tour that we're continuing here tonight. And just like October 7th, I worry that September 10th is going to represent a form of generational trauma that isn't going to heal easily. It's going to last for a long time to come. And the question for us now is what we actually do about it. See, Charlie, I had a chance to get to know him really well over the last year. He had a special tactic for dealing with the really hard questions. He would tell you, I know what it's not. I know it's not more violence. That's what he would say if he were here. But I know it's not to back down either. And the truth is tonight, I don't want to feed you platitudes. I don't want to just tell you what you already believe. I want to ask a hard question. The truth is we face a hard choice ahead for our movement. It is a fork in the road. It is a fork in the road for the future of the conservative movement. And it's a hard question to ask ourselves. Is our goal to defeat the left, or is our goal to save the country? Last year, I believe these goals were one and the same. But going forward, I don't think they quite are. Last month at Charlie's memorial service, his wife Erica bravely stated that she forgave Charlie's killer. Yet at the same time, that murderer will also be executed by lethal injection after he's convicted. An outcome that I, like many of you, believe is just. those two things are not contradictory. Both of those things are consistent with Charlie's Christian faith. Both of those things are consistent with the values that our nation was founded on. And there's deep wisdom in Erica Kirk's lesson for our country and for our movement. See, on one hand, we conservatives have an obligation, and now more than ever, to stand up for truth over falsehood, to stand up for the truth that God is real, to stand up for the truth that there are two genders, to stand up for the truth that reverse racism is racism, that an open border is not a border, that the nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to the history of mankind. And yet we can still stand for those truths while viewing those who believe in falsehoods not quite as our enemies who must be conquered, but instead as our fellow citizens who have lost their way and must be shown the light, not to berate them and banish them, but to pray for them, and even on rare occasions to actually persuade them, while still beating them soundly at the ballot box to make sure that their misguided ideas never turn into law. We win with ballots, not bullets. That's who we are. That's who we are as Americans. That's the choice we face ahead. Do we play the left's game? Silencing, canceling, punishing, authorizing the government to pick winners and losers in the private sector? Or do we stick to the principles of the American founding? Freedom, merit, the rule of law, the pursuit of excellence. It is a fork in the road for our movement, and I believe the answer is crystal clear. We don't care about owning the libs, not anymore. We care about owning responsibility for saving our country. It is not just about what we stand against, but what we actually stand for. Individual, family, nation, and God beats race, gender, sexuality, and climate. If we have the courage to stand for what is right, what is true, what is good, what is beautiful, that has always been the American way. In the dark winter of 1777, George Washington's army shivered at Valley Forge. They were starving, outnumbered, poorly clothed, and many of them believed the revolution was doomed. What kept them going wasn't hatred of their enemy, but their belief, their conviction that they were fighting for the ideals that would spawn the greatest nation known to the history of mankind. And you know what? Charlie Kirk had that same conviction. He used to say again and again that the greatest weapon against lies is not censorship, it is truth spoken with courage. He practiced what he preached by stepping into the lion's den of college campuses, handing the microphone to his fiercest critics, and then daring to win the argument. That was Charlie's Valley Forge. And even when the bullets came at him, he was still fighting with words, not weapons. That is the beauty of his legacy. We have to remember and respect that, not just as conservatives, but as Americans. Now, some of my friends on the right, good friends on the right, will argue that now isn't the time to go soft, hold hands, and sing Kumbaya if we don't utilize the levers of power now, if we don't stamp out toxic dissent now, if we don't rectify the country now, then we never will. And that we have a short window to act right now, and we got to step up and seize the moment. And even if we show restraint and even grace ourselves, the left won't show us that same courtesy when they're in power, which means that their side may win in the long run. And if that means then removing certain voices from network television or pressuring private companies to take action against dissent, then we should bite our tongue and do it while we can. We have to remember what time it is in America. That's how the argument goes. And I understand why many patriots on our side find this compelling, because it is certainly true that terrorists, just like those who struck on October 7th, just like those who struck Charlie Kirk, the one who did on September 10th, will always be willing to do the things we aren't willing to do, which creates an asymmetric terrain that makes our victory all the more difficult, because terrorists have no hope for their future. That's why they're hell-bent on destroying ours. What scares them more than anything is somebody with hope, somebody who gives people hope, somebody who lives with joy and purpose and meaning. Somebody like Charlie Kirk. That's why they attack. So how do we respond? Do we turn around and fight the Pharaoh on the shores of the Red Sea? Or do we cross? The answer, my friends, is that we keep going. their brutal tactics should never cause us to change who we are. But when we lower ourselves to play according to their rules, when we concede the idea that might makes right, that we settle our disagreements with force rather than debate, then we lose the very thing we were fighting for, and that is our identity as Americans. What exactly is that identity, we ask? Thank you. That is the question of our generation. It is the most important question for your generation. Really, to put America first, we first have to answer what America is. And it turns out this was actually the subject of my very last in-person conversation with Charlie when he visited Ohio on August 25th. The last time I ever saw him in person. We had a very private conversation. Just the two of us, one-on-one. What's an American, I asked him. And in classic Charlie form, he told me, I don't have the answer, but I'll tell you what it's not. It's not a race, I know that. But it's not just paperwork either. That much I know. I agree with what Charlie said. Our shared American identity isn't about a race, and it isn't about government paperwork. We're a nation defined by a set of ideals that united an extraordinary group of people 250 years ago. If you're the descendant of a particular race or lineage, but you don't actually subscribe to those ideals, then you're not really an American, not in the truest and deepest sense of that word. And if you happen to have physically entered our country and been granted a piece of paper by the government, but you don't actually believe in the ideals of our country, then once again, you're not really an American, not in the deepest sense of that word. But if you do believe in those ideals, wait your turn. Enter the country legally, work hard, play by the rules, make your contributions, take your oath of allegiance to the country, assimilate into the country, and become a citizen. Then you're every bit as much of an American as anybody else in this country. Thank you. And you see, that is what makes America different from every other nation in human history. As Ronald Reagan once said, you can go to Italy, but you'll never be an Italian. You can move to Germany, but you would never be a German. You can live the rest of your life in China or Japan. You would never be Chinese or Japanese. Yet you can come from any one of those countries to the United States of America, and you can still be an American, so long as you pledge allegiance to the ideals enshrined in our flag. You work hard, make your contributions, play by the rules, pursue the American dream. It is called the American dream for a reason. There's no such thing as a Canadian dream. There's no such thing as a British dream. There's no such thing as a Chinese dream. The American dream is distinctive. It is what makes American exceptionalism possible. Now, the woke vision of our identity rejects that American idealism. On the woke worldview, your identity is based on your race, your gender, your sexuality, or your lineage. If you're one race or gender, you're an oppressor. If you're another, you're a victim. The remedy to past discrimination, on their view, is present discrimination. The remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. That woke worldview is fundamentally at odds with the American founding, because we are the country where, regardless of your race, your gender, your sexuality, your religion, or your lineage, you can still be a citizen of this nation so long as you subscribe to and live by our national creed. So what does it mean to be an American in the year 2025? It means we still believe in those ideals of 1776. It means we believe in merit, that the best person gets the job regardless of their genetics, that you are judged not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character and your contributions. It means we believe in the rule of law. And I say this as the proud son of legal immigrants to the United States. That means your first act of entering this country cannot break the law. It means we believe in free speech and open debate without censorship. Whether you're Nick Fuentes or Alex Jones or Jimmy Kimmel, it means that words are not violence, that violence is violence, and violence is never an acceptable response to words. It's not just about our constitutional principles. Thank you. That's America. That's who we are. It's about our Constitution, but it's about even more than that. It is about a culture that is distinctive to our nation. It means we believe in accountability. It means that we are courageous, that we're brave, even heroic, when called upon to serve our country, that we take bold risks. Sometimes we fail, but we still pick ourselves up and do it again. It means we don't view that hardship as the same thing as victimhood, because hardship from time to time is what teaches us who we really are. It means that we're ambitious to achieve the things that we were taught to believe were impossible, from landing on the moon to landing on Mars. It means that just like our founding fathers, we are deeply curious about the world that we inhabit, and that it is our manifest destiny to lead it, not for our own sake, but for the sake of history and posterity. It means that we believe the legacy of our founding fathers is immortal. It means that we believe the soul of the United States of America is immortal. It means we believe that America's purpose in the world is immortal, and that we have a moral mandate to preserve it. That is who we are as Americans. That was the spirit that Charlie Kirk tried to revive on college campuses like the one where we convene tonight. That's what he fought for. And if we're being honest, we've lost our conviction in that American dream. And for Gen Z, I can understand why. Right now, it feels like the job market feels like an illusion to young college graduates who face a tough job market with debt on their shoulders. Home ownership feels like an illusion to young workers who feel like they've done their part, but still can't get ahead. Free speech feels like an illusion when you watch the people who share your viewpoints assassinated in cold blood for expressing them. I understand why many of you feel jaded. You elected Republicans, the side that I traveled across this country last year to campaign for, the side that Charlie Kirk traveled this country to campaign for last year, to deliver you an economic path back to success, a real path back to the American dream. And I'll be the first to say this. That is up to us to deliver to you. And if we fail now, we've got nobody left to blame but ourselves. I say that as somebody who's running for governor of my own home state of Ohio next year. That is the standard I want you to hold me to. We expect that. That's on us. But in the meantime, don't be cynical about our country, because it's still the last best hope that we have on planet Earth. There is nowhere else in the universe left to escape. The United States of America is still the last best chance in human history of a place where you can pursue your dreams and speak your mind, where you work hard, play by the rules, live a good life, and dream for an even better life for your kids, where you get ahead with your own hard work, your own commitment, your own ingenuity, and your own dedication. Are we imperfect as a nation? Sure we are, because we're a nation of human beings and not gods. But I would rather live in a country that has ideals and falls short of them than to live in a country with no ideals at all. So it is time for us to now roll up our sleeves and revive a new American dream in this country. A new American dream where we celebrate success over victimhood. A new American dream where we bring down the cost of housing by building more homes. A new American dream where the best person gets the job regardless of their skin color. A new American dream where if you work hard, you can afford to live a good life for yourself and for your family. A new American dream where every kid in this country gets the world-class education that is their birthright as an American. A new American dream where you can speak your mind in the open without somebody putting a bullet in your neck. A new American dream where you can walk in the downtown of your city without looking over your shoulder for fear of being assaulted. A new American dream where you can disagree with your friends and still get together with them at the dinner table. A new American dream where we are no longer a house divided, but a nation united. A nation whose true strength is not our diversity, but that which unites us across that diversity. And the beauty of this new American dream is that it is the same one that has guided us at every step of the way for the last 2.5 centuries, just as it will for the next 2.5 centuries. E pluribus unum. From many, one. That is what won us the American Revolution. That is what reunited us after the Civil War. That is what won us 2 world wars and the Cold War. That is what still gives hope to the free world. And if we can revive that dream, over group identity and victimhood and grievance than nobody in the world. Not a nation, not a corporation, not a virus, not a campus shooter is going to defeat us. That is what American exceptionalism is all about. That is who we are as Americans. Thank you for coming out tonight, guys. We love you. May God bless you and your families, and God bless our United States of America. Thank you, guys. God bless you. So I think we have some microphones. Get this party started, all right? Let's line up, and we're ready to rock and roll tonight. Come on up, and while we're doing that, can we give our friends in law enforcement a round of applause for keeping this place safe tonight? Thank you. And give another round of applause to the staff at Turning Point who are keeping Charlie's mission rolling every day. These people are heroes. They're behind the curtain. You don't see them. But thank you. Thank you for making it happen, and we'll line up and keep the evening going. Tell me your name, ma'am.
Jillian.
Jillian? Good to meet you.
My question is as follows. I believe that abortion is the killing of an innocent child, but is it feasible to legislate on this issue fairly without causing unnecessary harm? For example, in 2012, Dr. Halapavanara died after being denied an abortion after a prolonged miscarriage from septicemia. How do we ensure that doctors aren't prohibited from performing necessary care when women's lives are in danger, and they aren't when they aren't in immediate danger, but they soon will be if action isn't taken? This relates both to anencephaly, sorry.
Take your time. Yeah.
And hypermesis gravidarium, many other potentially deadly conditions. Yes, the fetus's life matters, but don't we have a duty to let medical professionals operate in the best interests of the mothers as well during these situations? How can we facilitate doctors being consulted in the crafting of bills that are incredibly medically complex?
So I want to thank you for your question. I will start with where we have firm agreement, that unborn life is life. We all agree on that, and I think that even those who think they don't agree, when they think about it, at least agree on that premise. Now, thanks to advances in modern medicine, it is exceedingly rare, like when I say exceedingly, not somewhat rare, exceedingly rare where there is a trade-off between the life of the mother and the fetus. There is a million other reasons why many abortions are performed each year. The idea that that ranks anywhere near a top or even prevalent reason isn't the case, thankfully, to the miracles of modern medicine, which you point out in the year 2025. That isn't really where the frontier of most abortions being committed are about. When we're pro-life, do we mean it womb to tomb? That's what I say. Absolutely. Every life, born and unborn, matters, and that's what we got to stand for. So do we want medical professionals to push the frontier of making sure that the life of the mother is fully respected in every instance of her getting medical care? Of course. And it's deeply personal to me, actually. Well, I'm a father of 2 sons, but my wife, one of the reasons she's not here is she's pregnant in the 2nd trimester with our first daughter, who we hope to welcome early next year. Thank you. So like your dad, I'll be a girl dad. But I would say that while that's a worthy discussion to have in a tiny sliver of cases, and we want to continue to advance the frontiers of modern medicine, I don't want to let that distract us from where the real abortion debate rests, which is elective abortion, which is a totally separate question from those rare, ultra-rare instances where you're talking about the life of the mother at risk, where we're on the same page, that is a top priority because all life is life that deserves respect. Thank you. I appreciate your question. Thank you.
Hello.
How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. I'd like to say thank you for being here because, we're in an era of political violence on campuses, and, it's bold to be here.
Well, it takes 2 to say thanks to that, man, so thank you. Thank you for being here. What's your name?
Ashton.
Ashton.
Yeah. So my question is in relation to Israel. I mean, obviously, we're in the wake of the October 7th attack 2 years ago, and I know that previously you had taken a stance against sending foreign aid to Israel. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. And I was wondering, do you still believe in that we should not fund them in their national defense and such?
Yeah, so here's my perspective is, and I think I don't want to speak for Charlie per se, although he and I talked a lot about this issue, and I think we were in a relatively similar place where I love Israel, and I love the Jewish people, and one of the things I love about Israel is that it has created a country that is able, against all odds, to defend itself to the fullest. And what they need from true friends, isn't green pieces of paper so much as actual diplomatic support to be able to defend themselves. If somebody attacks the United States at our southern border, I sure as heck don't want any other country telling us what we can do in response. And I think that Israel, similarly, wants to be a nation where they get to determine what their natural defense to the invasion of their own borders is, too. So that's a technical question around piping and plumbing of dollars when that's not the real issue. Now, and this is all I'd like to say about this issue today, because there are certain days for political debate, and there are certain days for remembrance. Today's a day for remembrance. There was 1,200 some innocent people killed in cold blood in the act of Hamas 2 years ago that was subhuman, and that was wrong. And we're all united behind that. Whatever your foreign policy, funding, technocratic, bifocal spectacle accounting debate might be, that's something we all agree on and we're rock solid on. And I also think the beauty of our country is that, look, we're a country where I've been frustrated with our government for the last half decade. You think about the 4 years under President Biden, I was proud to live in a country where I could criticize my government. Israel's a country which is a free country where they can criticize their government. And they're free to criticize America, and there's people from here who are free to criticize Israel. That's great, but at the end of the day, if we acknowledge that on this issue, if we can all just chill a little bit and acknowledge that what happened on October 7th was wrong, that nations ought to be able to determine how they actually defend themselves, and true allies support one another's right to do so, I think we found 80-90% common ground on an issue that's often, like the last one, on the issue of abortion, made out to be far more complicated than it needs to, and that's where I am on the question. So thank you, my man, all right?
Can I mention one more thing?
Why not?
I mean, you mentioned allies and such. Would you say that Israel is an ally of us and that we are an ally of them?
I would say yes.
Even after the USS Liberty attacks and the Levant affair?
So look, I like challenging questions. You know me, it sounds like, from where we're at. And I believe, I said it before, I'll say it again. I believe it is the right of a U.S. citizen to be able to criticize the United States and to ask critical questions of any other country, just like it's the right of a citizen of another free country to ask tough questions of the United States. Today is a day for remembrance, and for the people who are, it's a heated issue. You can have politics all over within the right and the left on this issue. I just think today is a day where it would be a beautiful thing if we can all unite around the idea that 1,200 Israelis, innocent human beings, who died on this day, October 7th, 2 years ago, were wrongly killed. Can we unite on that?
Yes, 100%.
If we can unite on that, then I think we made progress for today, and that's not to forestall all kinds of debates about public policy going forward. Thank you, my man, all right?
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Just 1 second. I'm just going to read it one-on-one off of this text that I got. Okay.
Who sent you the text?
It's our teacher at our school. I'm just asking on behalf of him.
Fair enough.
Okay. The Democrat running for Attorney General in Virginia said in leaked text that he wished his political opponent as well as his children were dead, and no Democrats condemned those words. Today, a poll came out showing that 1 in 3 leftists say that physical violence is necessary to effect social change. Do you think that the nation can come back from this level of hatred the political left has for conservatives?
We must. Whatever is necessary is always possible. So do I believe it's possible? I do.
Yeah.
But do we have work cut out for us ahead? Absolutely. The normalization of political violence is un-American in this country. It's unacceptable. And I think that one of the things I've noticed is no one on the right is going to manage to convince someone on the left, just as somebody on the left is probably going to have a hard time convincing someone on the right of the same thing although I personally believe the numbers are asymmetric in one direction. So what we're going to need is actually leaders with a spine on the left, who we disagree with deeply, to still stand up and say that no matter what you think, words, and this is one of the sins of the woke movement, the idea that words are violence. That's where a lot of this began, right? That intellectual slippage between words, the free debate and challenge in the marketplace of ideas. That idea, you would hear it a few years ago, that words are violence, that I am harmed, that microaggression is the equivalent of physical harm to me. That crossed an American boundary into something anti-American. The idea, if you turn words into violence, then I guess somebody could think violence is justified in response. We on the left and right have to be united that words are not violence, violence is violence, and violence is never, ever, never, ever in the United States of America an acceptable response to words, period. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so my question is that over the past year prior to his assassination, Charlie Kirk became increasingly against legal immigration. And I know over Christmas you had defended it on Twitter numerous times. I'm wondering if you've changed your view at all in talking to Charlie about this. I've worked myself in an immigration office for a number of years and have very much become against a lot of the legal immigration we see. So I'm curious if your views have changed on that.
I would say my views have been pretty consistent over time, and they're consistent with what I reflected in my speech, which let's start with where we need to begin. I think, based on your question, I assume we would find alignment here, but I hope we do. We have double-digit numbers of millions of people who entered the country illegally. And my view is if you entered the country illegally, it is perfectly just for you to be returned to your country of origin. We haven't done that. So
I agree. Let's do that first. Focus on that first. But
and that would constitute something where we have still 10 plus million numbers to go before we get to that question. Now, the separate question is, what should the legal immigration policy of the United States look like? Is the legal immigration policy of the United States right now serving the best interests of our country?
No.
I think the answer to that question is no. I agree with you. So what I favor and have long favored, and we got to have the courage to actually just stop bucking to, the last person who complained in your ear, to actually speak truth, is we need a legal immigration system that accomplishes one thing. Does it serve the interests of the United States citizens who are already here? That should be the sole purpose. Now the question is, we may disagree on exactly how we do it, but at least we're aligned on the goal. The goal of U.S. immigration policy is to serve the Americans who already reside here. Then we have a question of what a merit-based system looks like. Now, the White House took some steps recently to say that, people should have to pay more to be able to actually hire someone from another country. I think that's actually a reasonable approach. If somebody's asked to put their money where their mouth is, that's a reasonable approach for framing the question of how we think about legal immigration to the United States. But I think that is a tough question. We're going to have to roll up our sleeves and actually ask the question, what best advances the interests of the citizens who are already here? And a precondition for even having that debate is actually to have ended the illegal immigration crisis in this country that we can't just sweep under the rug to punt for this other complicated question ahead of us. That's where I land on the question. So thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
Hi, nice to meet you. My name's Luke. I got a question. Here we go. So in my opinion, the mental health crisis in America is the biggest threat to the future of society, and the numbers speak for themselves as in the past 20 years, the reported depression and anxiety rates have gone from 8% to 20%, and this exponential growth, almost as high as Nancy Pelosi's investment returns. But anyways, it feels like the scale of this mental health issue is overlooked and frankly being abused, whether that is through social media ecospheres and algorithms within school systems or promotion of radical left agendas such as transgenderism. So how will people realize this massive issue that affects all of us right now, and what should we do about it?
Look, it's an epidemic in our country. Depression, anxiety, fentanyl, suicide, all spreading like wildfire. And it's not an accident that happened over the same period that we see the rise of psychological and political poisons. Wokeism, transgenderism, climatism, COVIDism. These are symptoms, in my view, of a deeper void of purpose and meaning in our country, particularly amongst young people. I'm not young compared to you guys, but in my generation, millennials, we see it. In your generation, Gen Z, we see it. You have to fill that void with the real thing. So here's what I don't think is going to work. I don't think just symptomatic whack-a-mole is going to work. I think we have to fill that void, that black hole, with the real thing. with a vision of American national identity that runs so deep that it dilutes the poison to irrelevance, with a self-confidence that comes from having two parents in the home, in a stable nuclear family that gives a kid the foundation to believe they can jump higher when they do so from a stable foundation. The revival of faith in our country, mediated not through the government, but through our culture. Something that Charlie Kirk, I know, was very focused on as well. Filling that vacuum in the heart of every person. It was actually a French scientist who once said that, it's Pascal, Blaise Pascal, who said if you have a void hole the size of God in your heart and God doesn't fill it, something else will instead. So the way I look at it is faith, family, patriotism, start with just pick two. Okay, it can't be zero. That's where we're beginning. Now, where can public leaders, such as in government, make a difference? I think our schools are a good opportunity to start. Early detection in schools is a big opportunity. Use an education system that revives the self-confidence of our young people. Bring back physical education at a young age. Bring back the presidential fitness test. PE as early as kindergarten. Physical health and mental health are two sides of the same coin. Serve healthier food in the cafeterias. Revive civic education even in high school. I personally think we do that with some standards. I think every high school senior who graduates from a high school in this country should have to pass the same civics test that, frankly, every immigrant has to pass before that immigrant becomes a voting citizen. You got to know something about your country, to be proud of your country, to be proud of yourself. But I want to give you credit for putting your finger on the pulse of something that knows no partisan boundary. It's not about black or white or left, right, Democrat, Republican, urban, rural. What you described, the mental health epidemic, if you look at the numbers, it knows no demographic or partisan boundary. And we really want to fix the country. We're going to fill that vacuum in the heart of a generation. It's the job of leaders like myself, governors like those of us who are here, and leaders at every level, high and low, including the household, to play their role in stepping up and reviving that missing sense of purpose in our country. And if we do that, I think the peak of this mental health epidemic will be behind us.
Thank you.
Thank you, my man. Appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Raleigh. Thank you for being here. You talked a little bit about social media, and obviously it affects a lot of young people. And there was a friend of Charlie's, her name's Candace Owens, you probably know her. She's made a lot of videos, and a lot of people have watched these videos. And I was just wondering what your opinion was on some of the claims she's brought forward.
So I'll share with you something that's been true of my experience of social media over the last year. One of the things that's hard about being in politics is, on one hand, you got to use it, right? I've got millions of followers. It's a great way to at least tell people what you think, but to do it while consuming less of what it sends me back. So I would say over the last year, since I left the presidential race, one of my learnings is, you think about even the last question about mental health, you got to practice what you preach and set a model. I use it to send the messages I need to send, and I try to consume as little of it as I can back in a response. That's put me in a better place in my own life. One of the things I've also learned is that there is such a gap between what, and I learned this from running for president, such a gap between what exists in the algorithmic and often even artificially astroturfed created response-based echo chamber in the social media world versus what exists in 3 dimensions, even in rooms like the one where we are tonight. So one of the things I'm aiming to do is, if somebody has a question for me and I want to have real dialogue in the real world, I'm going to come here and do it this way. It's a lot better this way. And so if somebody wants to ask me any question you want, anything's going to be fair game. But I think that getting into the rabbit hole of the minutia of an online world that feels increasingly, I'm happy to say, in my life foreign to me, that's the way I'd actually like to keep it. So if somebody else has a question about what you said, I'll address it. But about addressing what's come up on the online echo chambers outside my scope of focus right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
My name is Adam. I'm still in high school. I'm trying to finish high school up this year. But I'm wondering, where can I start off where I could carry Charlie's legacy in Kalispell?
Say that again. I just want to hear the question.
I'm trying to carry Charlie's legacy in Kalispell, but I'm wondering where I could start and what are your tips for me?
Sure. The first tip is, and Charlie embodied this better than probably anybody I know, when you are the only person in a room, say it's in your high school, say it's in a club you're a part of, say later it's an organization you join. When you're the only person in a room, who believes what you do, you have an obligation to your country to stand up and say it. Say it with a spine. Say it with conviction. But say it with respect. And I think that that's one of the things, if you think about carrying on Charlie Kirk's legacy, I did so many of these events in college campuses across the country with him last year. We went to the University of Pittsburgh, we went to Georgia State, we went to University of North Carolina, others. And one of the things he would always say, and I enjoyed this, right? We were a good pair in this sense, is when somebody would come up to the mic, and even if it happens tonight, we'll say the same thing. It could be somebody, it's a predominantly conservative room, if I'm reading it correctly, but somebody from the left comes up, we don't sneer at them. We let them ask their question, and then we're going to address it directly head on. But we may say that the other side doesn't extend us that courtesy and response, and that's probably right. But we don't hold ourselves to their standards. We hold ourselves to our own standards. And if you want to carry on my friend's legacy, our friend's legacy, that's what you do. Hold yourself to your standards regardless of what the other side does. That's my best advice to you. Thank you, young man, all right? Good luck with high school.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Peyton. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Peyton Watanowitz. And
Afternoon, man. It's like, yeah, I'm from Ohio. I'm 2 hours ahead. It's like nighttime for me. Good to see you, man.
With rising global tensions, including situations like Venezuela, do you believe the U.S. should prioritize maintaining a strong military presence abroad, or should we shift focus more toward homeland security using assets like National Guard and ICE to protect our borders and internal security?
So, before we get to the either or, the number one thing we need to do is I think we need a restoration of both U.S. hard power and soft power. Both of those aren't in the place where they need to be. I think it's unacceptable if you have hypersonic missiles operated by other countries in an era of potential risks of nuclear risks, where Russia or other countries have hypersonic missile capabilities ahead of that of the U.S. No, we need a restoration of our hard power capabilities. Not rhetoric, not just the chest thumping, but actual tools, our military industrial base, our ability to produce actual hard military power. God forbid in the situation that we need it, which we hope we don't have, we need to actually have hard power to the fullest. And then I also want to see a restoration of soft power. You know, I think that part of the U.S.'s cultural cachet around the rest of the world, even the dollar as the reserve currency of the world, is a great form of soft power. So I want to see both of those things. And I think if we're strong in raw hard power, that actually goes with, hand in hand with, having strong borders. So to me, it's not an either or, it's a commitment to do what we actually know where we're short. And it's easy to deflect on the fact that we're behind on certain capabilities, like shipbuilding. Like we're going to hit a nadir in the number of our ships in the South Pacific precisely around the time where, Taiwan might be vulnerable to Chinese incursion. This is not a moment to change the subject from the main show. You can change the main show to a lot of peripheral questions around U.S. military power. I'd say keep the main thing. Restore hard power, restore soft power, and then use it to do what actually best protects American interests rather than ancillary interests. That's the order where we go, and I think that if we do that, we're going to be well on our way to restoring our international position of military strength where we've historically been. Thank you.
Thank you.
First off, I want to say thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, man.
In 2024, 2.2 million adults in the U.S. attempted suicide. Each year, the amount of attempts exponentially grows. Around 70% of these attempts are male. There's a stigma that makes a lot of men feel like they cannot talk about their feelings because it might make them quote-unquote weak. My question for you is, what message do you have for all the men out there that feel that their only option in life is to attempt suicide?
You're putting your finger on a tough issue, but a real issue, and you think it even been veterans. The rate of veteran suicide, for example, just one segment of the community is unacceptable. People have served our country. My message to those young men is there's a better way. Life is beautiful. Hardship is something we all encounter in our own ways, and it is not weak to open up and talk about it. It is actually a source of strength to be able to admit to yourself and then open up to the people around you. There are people around you who are rooting for your success in life who you may not even know exist. Maybe it's your parents. Maybe it's a brother or sister. Maybe it's a friend in class. Maybe it's your spouse. But rely on the people around you who are rooting for you. Don't be afraid to stand up and actually talk about your struggle, but admit that that's actually true strength. And then find other ways to find your way out of the black hole that you might be in. I mean, I think that we live in a time where people have given up on the current job market. You can take up work yourself in your own way. I mean, start with your own home. Start with taking on activities that give you purpose. Go outside for a run. Touch some grass. There is so much in this short life that we're given that gives us meaning, that turning to just darkness and ending this great gift we've been given of our life isn't the right way to do it. Open up. That's not weakness. That's true strength. Take it from a man who considers himself to be strong in the same way. We all go through our struggles. But if you're able to talk about it, if you're able to rely on the community around you, and then you're able to find other things that give you real meaning in your life, even if it's outside of what your traditional job is, do it. Because we need you. The world needs you. The world is a better place with you here. God gives every one of you, every one of us, our own unique God-given gift, distinct from every other person in the world, actually. And partly the beauty of our country is that we're the place where you get to make the most of your own unique God-given gifts without anybody standing in your way. And so if you don't want to do it out of selfish indulgence, do it out of your moral duty. You have a moral duty to make use of the gifts that God gave you. Take the time to figure out what they are, put them to use, and we're behind you as you make the best of your attempt, all right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Hello, my name's Owen. You talked about young people needing to not get discouraged by the job market and the things sort of stacked against them. What are some things that maybe you could do or people in power that you could advocate for that could help young people in this tough time for them?
So there's so much we can do. I'll give you a few things that are really tangible in the here and now. Number one is the cost of housing feels way too expensive for young people because it is too expensive for many of those young people. How do you fix that housing price crisis in our country? Build more homes to bring down the cost of actual housing. The people stopping you from doing it are actually a lot of bureaucrats that exist, not even at just the federal level, but the state and local level, who have land use restrictions. That say, well, I don't want those smaller homes built around where I am. Those land use restrictions are destroying our country because it's a double whammy. Not only are there fewer homes, there's fewer single-family or even two-bedroom homes that a young person might want as their starter home. That's number one, is the American dream is being crushed under a pile of red tape. We got to cut that red tape and do it with pride. That's on housing. Number two, I'll go to the other end of the spectrum for the long run, is we have an obligation as leaders to fix the educational achievement crisis in our country, and it is a crisis. All right? And a lot of people get upset when I say this. The reason they get upset is sometimes the truth hurts. But if you care about somebody, you give them the truth. If you care about yourself, you can tell them what they want to hear. I'm going to give you the truth. Right now, 75% of 8th graders in our country are not proficient in math at their age level. 70% of them aren't even proficient in English. You could debate how you cut the statistics, but even amongst some of the top regions in China, the average student is 4 full years ahead of the average student in the United States. That doesn't work for us. It's an uncomfortable message to hear. It's uncomfortable not because it's false, but because it's true. But we're not going to sit here and just watch that happen and throw our hands in the air. We're going to turn that ship around. We got to turn that ship around by having the courage to bring standards back to our public schools, both through school choice that gives every parent what I believe is their right to send their kid to the best possible school they can, but to combine that with also, and we'll give you a round of applause for school choice, we'll take that. We know that works, but to go further and bring actual standards back to our public schools as well. I'll give you one example, one tangible example. You asked me for a specific, I'll give you a specific.
You said you're running for the governor. I first found out about you from when you were running for president, and I really enjoyed watching the debate.
Thank you.
But I feel like it's really easy to talk about what we need to do.
Yep.
But we need to talk about more like what people are going to do.
Yeah. So let me give you one example of what we're going to do in Ohio. I'll make this pledge for reforming education in Ohio. If you cannot read by the end of 3rd grade in Ohio when I'm governor, you're not going to 4th grade until you actually can, okay? Standards. That's not compassion, passing a kid along. Passing a kid along like a widget on an assembly line is cruelty, because here's one thing you take away about education, it's this. That's the age where you need to make the transition from learning to read to reading to learn. If you never make that transition, your chance of achieving success in life falls like a rock off a cliff. If you do make that transition, your chance of achieving success goes through the roof. So we know how to get this done. In fact, Mississippi, which was 49th out of 50 states in the country, is now in the top 10 in fourth grade literacy because they adopted the third grade reading guarantee similar to what I'm describing. So this can be done. We put man on the moon, we can get this much done, and we owe it to your generation and the next one to do it. My skin in the game is, as I said, I'm raising two young boys, and God willing, early next year, a young daughter. We owe it to our kids and their generation. That's our duty to you, and what I say we're going to do that in Ohio and set a model for the country. Thank you, my man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I have a personal question.
That's allowed.
So based on what the press says about your beliefs, you call yourself a Hindu, but you also call yourself Christian.
I don't call myself Christian. I call myself a Hindu.
Okay. So based on what the Turning Point's values are, which is Christianity, I'm a little confused on why you believe in I don't know. Wouldn't it be logical to conclude that a monotheistic organization would be more, I don't know, I guess I just don't understand why a polytheistic ideology would support some sort of, monotheistic perspective which Christianity is. So I guess I'm wondering why you have Christian values in that way.
Sure. Happy to address that. What's your name, sir?
Liam Birmingham.
Liam. So tell me about what you know about Hinduism.
Hinduism is a polytheistic religion that...
So with due respect, I'll just cut in right there, because there's one thing I have a little bit of authority on. I'm actually a monotheist. I believe there's one true God. It's from the Vedanta tradition of Advaita philosophy, not stuff that we need to spend a ton of time here on, but since you asked about it, I wanted to address it. I believe there's one true God. Now, let me just ask you, because I know that may be a hard thing to process. What's your faith?
I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Jesus.
Great. Do you believe in the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit?
I think a lot of people here do. So
good. And that doesn't make you a polytheist, does it?
Probably not, no.
Great, because I think this is it's a great spiritual question. There's good dialogue here. Is every religion has its reconciling of the one and the many. And so in my faith, I believe there's one true God. He resides in all of us, and he appears in different forms, but it's one true God. So I'm an ethical monotheist. That's the way I would describe my faith. Now, I will tell you, I'm not running to be pastor of Ohio. I'm running to be governor of Ohio, and I didn't run to be pastor of America. I ran to be president of the United States of America. Can I ask you a question in response? Because I love dialogue like this.
Sure, yeah.
Do you think it's inappropriate for someone who's a Hindu to be, say, a U.S. president?
No, I think it's... No, well...
You be honest.
Isn't Hinduism... Well, I mean, I can ask yourself that Hinduism believes in Shiva and, what is it? The flute God, I forget.
Right, Krishna, who's you're thinking of.
Yeah, Krishna.
So the one thing for you to take away from, about my faith is I'm an ethical monotheist. I believe in one true God, the Advaita philosophy of Vedanta. And I think that as you think about the Holy Trinity and what that means for, you're not a polytheist either. That's a similar philosophy, and I'd love to kind of continue that over a religious dinner conversation sometime. But
you also call yourself a Hindu as well.
I'm a Hindu. I am a Hindu. So I'd like to. So we're here mostly. I love having spiritual discussions. We can continue this another time. What I'd like to focus on today, though, is actually where that leaves us with the values of our own country, the shared values of this country, and actually, to that effect, what's your name?
Liam Birmingham.
Liam, I have something I'd like to give you. Would you like to just come on stage and join me for a moment? It's something that's really important to me. It's next to my faith and to my family. This is the next most important thing to me in life. I usually keep it with me, and for tonight, I think it'll actually be really useful for having you come up here, and I'd love to give it to you. You want to join us for a second? Give Liam a round of applause, folks, for being brave and asking a tough question. Thank you, Liam. So what I'm about to give you is something that's actually near and dear to my heart. When I think about our journey of leadership in this country, what matters more than the differences in our faith is our shared value set. And next to my faith and my family, this is the next most important thing to me. This is the Constitution of the United States of America. I'm going to give you my copy from today, and there's 7 articles in it. I'll ask you to just open it up real quick to Article 6, if you will, for a second. And I think it's actually, we talk about the Constitution a lot in our country, and I love that. One of the things I love about it is it actually makes sense to read the Constitution from time to time. It's a good thing to actually read. So we'll go to Article 6. There's 7 articles in it. And why don't you just read the part 3 to the audience? We'll make this our constitutional reading for the day.
The senators and representatives before mentioned and the members of the several states legislators and all executives and judicial officers both in the United States and the several states shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. But isn't Charlie Kirk's organization founded on Christian values as well? And isn't the United States of America also, based on what Protestantism is, based on how those values are? Wouldn't that contradict what your beliefs are?
So it actually turns out that my belief system, the core values, though the theology is different, the core value set is the same. We believe there's one true God. Don't kill, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, don't commit adultery. You familiar with the 10 Commandments? Yeah, so am I. And I think that one of the things that's the beauty of this country is that we're the country where, regardless of what your faith or your lineage is, if you subscribe to the ideals of our country, that's what makes us and brings us together as Americans. And Charlie and I ended up having a lot of discussions about faith. And one of the things I loved about him is, in his Christian faith, his intellectual curiosity and interest in other people of monotheistic faith and being able to find similar values. That's what our friendship was based on. And to the extent that you're interested in continuing to learn about other faiths beyond your own and how that brings us together as a country, I'm happy to continue the dialogue with you, man, all right? Read that Constitution. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Reagan Fruits, and my question is, in a world where the youth is constantly looked down upon or pushed to the side, as young people, how can we continue to rise up, be bold for our faith, be bold for our beliefs, even after being told that we are too young or do not have enough experience?
Well, look, I think that young people have been kind of told this for time immemorial. Okay, it's like a tradition that every generation has to the next. I think there's one unique part about your next generation, and I think it's worth talking about tonight. One of the things that is going to be different for your generation, right? They said the same thing about millennials back in 2012. They don't work as hard, they're not as productive, and then what do you know? Life goes on every new generation. But what's different in your generation is we're entering an era of AI. We're entering an era of quantum computing and automation. And I worry about what that's going to mean for the future of Gen Z's ability to succeed in that era. So now if you have an older generation that's running the companies or whatever, but is able to say that, hey, who needs to hire a college grad when I've got the equivalent of a college grad who will work 100% of the time and I can train and align with my company's value sets called ChatGPT or Open Evidence or whatever you want to call it, whatever your favorite chatbot is, trained 5 years from now, that's where things could be going. This is a hard question that we're going to have to confront because that has real consequences for your generation. It's not just talk. So what I would like to see, right, and you could have a version of this at a state, you could have a version of it for the country. What I would like to see is for Gen Z to participate in the economic upside created by AI and automation and quantum computing, using the power of compound interest beginning at a young age. So this will shock you if you haven't thought about it before. It's counterintuitive. If you put $10,000 into just the S&P 500, even what it's done over the last 40 years, if it does that over the next 40 years, that would make you a millionaire by your 50s. So $10,000, I'm not saying it's not a lot of money, but there's only 3.7 million kids born in the country per year. That'd be 37 billion. That's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money compared to $3 trillion that we're spending on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, which, by the way, I worry aren't even going to exist for your generation by the time you age into it. Instead, to actually cut in the next generation into the increasing compounded return that we gain from those advances in technology, AI, automation. So what do we want for Gen Z? Part of it is what we need to do for you as leaders. And I think we as leaders need to cut Gen Z into the gains of American economic growth. Cut Gen Z into the gains accrued by American capitalism. Why is socialism more popular amongst young people than capitalism? Look, I'm not going to convert your generation by giving you a lecture about Friedrich von Hayek or Milton Friedman, but what we might actually convert you with is allowing you to be a capitalist and participate with real skin in the game. And that's a lot better of an alternative to then signing up and just receiving a government check of, whatever, welfare, Medicaid, Social Security, Medicare in the future, where those programs might even run out of money. Instead, let's get the head start of getting the next generation invested in an era of improved American productivity, so we're rooting for the same thing. That gives people hope. That gives people a sense that you're not rooting for then how you divvy up a shrinking pie, but how do you actually grow the size of that pie? That's where we need to get to for your generation. And so, look, I could give advice, but it would sound preachy. A lot of it comes down to when you face hardship, don't see yourself as a victim. Double down. Working harder was never a formula that failed somebody. I think all those things are true. But now I'm the, over 40 guy talking to the next generation, sounding like every generation has in the past. Just because it's trite doesn't mean it's not true. It's trite because it is true. But I think we can go further by your generation is going to face unique challenges. Let's use that as an opportunity to make Gen Z a universal generation of millionaires in the United States of America. That would actually be pretty good, wouldn't it, if we got a head start on that? And turns out we can afford to do that more easily than we can fund the entitlement state. That's where I land. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great question, all right?
Hi there.
Hi. What's your name?
Whisper.
Whisper. That's a good name.
Thank you.
I like that.
My question is, I had a different question, but because you got out the Constitution, I want to ask you, do you believe due process applies to all people, illegal and legal?
Well, so due process of law is afforded to, I think, anybody who is in this country. That's what I believe. I'm actually going through the constitutional all the way to the 14th Amendment Incorporation. Due process applies to all persons in the country, yes.
Okay, so then do you support the administration's action supporting people without due process?
Well, I think that is asserting a conclusion. So does every person deserve due process? And what does due process mean is somebody's accused of something, there's a process to determine whether that accusation is actually true. Once it is proven to be true, then they face their punishment. So the idea that there is not due process afforded to many people, I don't think is a correct assertion right now. Are there occasionally mistakes that are made one-off that can be corrected? In any mass governmental administration of justice, there always is. But I do not believe it is either the intention or the practice of the current administration to forgo due process for people who are in the country. If that systematically were an issue, I'd be the first person to say it because I'm a constitutionalist. But that's a separate question from saying that if somebody has gone through that process, I'll give you an example. Somebody has had a final order of removal from the country, then they should be removed from the country. There was a man who was beheaded in Texas, in Dallas, about a month ago, by somebody who was in this country illegally. And we're not just saying they're here legally. They had a final order of removal after going through all of that due process, and they still weren't removed. So what I don't want to do is to create a deflection of a fake debate when we actually have a real debate to have, which is how committed are we to removing people who have already had a final order of removal after going through due process. That's really where the political debate is. And I come down on the side is if you've gone through that process and had a final order of removal, you should be removed. But I personally, and I speak for myself, I'm speaking for Vivek Ramaswamy here, and my understanding of the U.S. Constitution that I intend to swear an oath to, if I'm elected governor, I believe due process applies to every person who's in this country. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Conrad Smith. I'm the new secretary at a new TPUSA chapter in Carroll College.
Congrats, man. It's good.
And I'd like to ask you a very controversial question. What is your opinion on pineapple on pizza?
Depends on what else is on there, man. Throw on some onions and mushrooms, I'm good with it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think we disagree there, but
Yeah, the audience did not like that. I will tell you that. That was not my most popular response tonight.
And I also have another question from you for a gentleman who was behind me. His name is Brian. It's a bit long, so. Many of us, myself included, have been reflecting on the nature of comfort and support in the wake of Charlie's passing. Charlie often spoke of the importance of his Christian faith, and I believe the life of Jesus was a profound example of empathy, stepping into another's pain to truly understand it. For those who critique wokeness by rejecting empathy as a concept, how do you reconcile that political stance with the kind of deep shared grief that you and Charlie's family are now experiencing? Has this tragedy revealed a new appreciation for the moral necessity of feeling with one another? Have you shifted at all, and do you now see it as a necessary and unifying force rather than a potential sickness? Someone else's words, not mine.
That's fair, and I hope that whoever else that was would have felt comfortable to come up to the microphone and ask the question themselves. Because I know that whether you're on the left or right, we want you to be able to converse freely without having to hide yourself. So I want to say that for the remainder of the people in that long line as well. If I ever gave the impression that as a human being who is anti-woke, and I'll define what is anti-woke, that I'm somehow anti-empathy or compassion, then that means I haven't done a good enough job of explaining what my view actually is. See, I believe part of the problem with wokeness is it substitutes empathy for a fake version of it that actually creates a culture of condescension, that reduces you to your genetics, right? So let's define this word woke. There's the premise of your question. I'm anti-woke. What does that mean? It means that your identity is based on your genetics, your race, your gender, your sexuality, your lineage. That if you're one of those attributes, you're an oppressor. If you're another of those attributes, you're oppressed. And it causes us to see one another as nothing more than the sum of our inherited characteristics. I reject that. I think it actually fosters greater division rather than greater empathy and compassion. That is distinct from saying that, you know what, somebody goes through hardship. Do you have empathy for them? Do you have, as a human being, an impulse to want to help them? Of course, whether they agree with you politically or not. And look, the death of Charlie was devastating for me personally. Some 15 days before him. We traveled the country all of last year. He's one of my closest friends in this domain of American politics. And to see him go, I know, was a crushing blow to so many people across the country. We are grateful for the empathy and the community we've been able to form. And we ought to extend that to anybody else who's going through their version of suffering as well. That's what Charlie Kirk would want. That's very different from saying that just because somebody is a particular race or gender, you actually regard them differently. Two very different things. And we can do both of those two things at the same time. In fact, I think true compassion, true empathy is seeing somebody as a human being, a fellow citizen worthy of dignity and respect regardless of what their skin color is, regardless of what their gender is, regardless of what their sexuality is, regardless of what their lineage. And when I say I'm anti-woke, that's actually what I mean. We might actually, with your friend Brian, be speaking the exact same language. Thank you, man, all right? And thank you, Brian.
Much. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate that.
OH.
I.O. Headed back there after this, but I'm having too much fun, so we're gonna keep this rolling for a bit.
I'm from Ohio, to start off. President Theodore Roosevelt, one of the greatest conservatives in American history, once said that we have to use prudence in regards to our natural resources granted to us by God. And as an Ohioan, I think both of us understand how important that message is. I'm from Cleveland, and our river caught on fire a ton of times. And that resulted in the Clean Water Act in 1972, which is one of the most important environmental regulations in our country's history. And it saved our river in my city. And you're running a campaign, from my understanding, for governor of Ohio, which is where all my family lives. And you're running a campaign that is fundamentally against almost all environmental regulations. So how do you reconcile those things? Ohio's
so not
history.
Not quite accurate. Not quite accurate, but you raise a good premise to your question. So it's like actually, it's so much resemblance to that last question from Brian asked by the gentleman who was right before you, saying, how can you at once be somebody who is anti-woke but also be an empathetic person, right? As though those two things are at odds with each other. Here's the analogy here. On one hand, I do believe that much of the climate change movement is based on fundamentally false premises. And I've articulated this in one of my books. I've articulated this elsewhere. I stand by everything that I've said there. I'll give you an example. I mean, I think there are more people, 8 times as many people who die of warm temperatures every year than cold temperatures. So let's just start with the question of whether incrementally rising global surface temperatures are net negative for humanity when you have more deaths from warm temperatures than cold temperatures. So I will admit that I've been pretty vehement on that set of issues. That is distinct from supporting clean air, clean water, a clean environment, even preserving. Think about the state where we are right now in Montana, preserving beautiful lakes, national parks. Think about, I mean, I'm a lover of nature. Every time I'm in Montana, every time this year it's been a day trip. I was in and out last time, didn't spend the night. I'm in and out today, I won't spend the night. I still get a hike in here, if not 2, right? We went to a lake earlier today, which is Lava Lake, right?
Great hike, by the way.
It's a fantastic.
I've done that one so many times.
Dude,
Did you swim? Did you swim in the lake?
So I would have if we didn't have to be here on time. They were already yelling at me for being late. It was 6 miles total before we got here. But my point is, I'm somebody who, in the tradition of Teddy Roosevelt, loves the natural beauty of our country, loves America the beautiful, believes it is our job as leaders of this country to preserve and protect that which is beautiful and great about our nation. But that is distinct from bowing at the altar of what's become this new kind of secular religion. I don't call it the climate religion, I call it the climate cult, because at least religions have withstood the test of time in a way that this one has not. Those are 2 distinct positions. And so just like the last question, I can believe both those things at the same time. For clean air, for clean water, for our national parks, for the preservation of American beauty, while also recognizing that actually in some ways the climate movement has been hostile to those environmental goals because it's usurped everything in service of this one set of quasi-religious, quasi-cultish beliefs. That's what I believe.
So do you commit to protecting nature, water, our environment, Lake Erie, as governor of Ohio?
Yes, and I'll give you one specific commitment. There's a program called H2 Ohio that looks after cleanliness of Lake Erie specifically, and I'll commit to you, I'm fully behind H2 Ohio, and I want to actually preserve the beauty of our lake to the north. We have a beautiful northern coast, and some of you from Montana can return the favor and visit us sometime as well.
Yes, go to
All
Lake
right?
Erie.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's beautiful. Thank you, all right? Appreciate it. We'll take maybe just 4 or 5 more questions, then we'll wrap it up, all right?
Okay. I think a big problem with the radical left and at the core of a lot of the culture issues we have today is truly a spiritual problem. One where we've lost many core facets for spiritual life, some of which include discernment, critical inquiry, and contemplative study. And in my opinion, people have therefore supplanted the self in place of God. They've lost a core of their belief system, and in the center of it, again, they've put themselves. I think this is such a deep wounding, and it's my thesis that having a God at the center doesn't necessarily make you a conservative, but we know that a strong theology breeds a good political life. And so I'm wondering, as an average person in our everyday lives, how you think we can help heal such a challenging wound. And do you see political leadership as an extension of spiritual leadership?
I actually see both of them going hand in glove together in reviving a great country. I don't think you're going to save the country exclusively through politics. I think the revival of our culture and conviction of purpose and self-confidence, the full answer to that mental health epidemic we discussed earlier, is going to require a kind of spiritual revival in the country. I personally don't believe that that's limited to any one particular faith, but I believe that when we have more people of true faith in the country, that's a good thing that makes us stronger rather than weaker. And our job as leaders in the civic sphere of our lives isn't to create the environment for forcing that on anybody, because it doesn't work, but instead to at least speak to it and its importance, and that's something I'm committed to doing. So thank you very much, all right? I appreciate that question. Thank you. I'm getting the sign. We're taking a flight to Ohio, so they're waving me off. But we'll take the last two questions, actually. Thank you.
Hi, my question starts with a statement, kind of. Earlier, going back to when you and Liam talked about the Trinity, part of the definition of the Trinity is that it isn't polytheist. So if the Trinity is polytheist, then it's not true according to Christianity. And I know some Christians do argue that the Trinity isn't biblical. So putting aside the Trinity with that argument, I do have to ask why, when you speak in front of all these people, you talk and reference the one true God and faith and don't clarify that you do believe in something different. I don't think we should automatically get rid of all other religions as voices. I think they're important to have, but I do think that Christian voices should be the main voice of America, and I want to know basically why you seem to be, and I don't mean to be horribly offensive, but why you seem to be masquerading as a Christian. And I know you don't claim to be a Christian, but why you talk as if we believe the same thing.
So, ma'am, I'll be equally direct as you were with me. I don't have to justify my faith to you, just like you don't have to justify your faith to me. But I believe we believe in the same values that made this country great. I'm proud of who I am. I stand for that. That's what our founding fathers came here for. You think about the founding of this country was based on the idea that nobody has to bow down to some other authority, whether it was the Anglican Church, whether it was a particular belief system. People traveled halfway around the world for freedom of conscience, freedom of religion. They put it in the First Amendment, not like in the 7th or 8th or 9th Amendment, in the First Amendment for a reason. That's who we are. So I would suggest that I am a strong proponent of you. If you're pursuing your Christian faith, show up at church every Sunday. I want you to be as religious and as prayerful as you possibly can. I think that makes our country and hopefully you and your family stronger and better off for you. That is my wish for you. It is my wish of persons for every faith in this country to do the same thing. That's going to make us be better off as well. But I resist, especially after we had that in-depth discussion, which probably went a little too long with Liam anyway, where I've been pretty clear about what my position is and about my own faith. I'm not masquerading to be anything. You know what? I'd rather tell you who I am and what I believe, and you can decide whether to vote for me than to pretend to be something that I'm not. So I wish you well. Keep praying and keep pledging allegiance to our flag. Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, Vivek, you would profess to be a conservative, correct?
I'm a proud conservative.
If you are an Indian, a Hindu, coming from a different culture, different religion than those who founded this country, those who grew this country, built this country, made this country the beautiful thing that it is today, what are you conserving? You are bringing change. I'll be 100% honest with you. Christianity is the one truth. Jesus Christ is God, and there is no other God. He is part of the Holy Trinity, and any other God is a demon, and it's false. How can you represent the constituents of Ohio who are 64% Christian if you are not a part of that faith?
Like I said, I'm not here to justify my faith to you any more than you are to me, but what I do share is the value set this country was founded on. And I think that it's really important that we not reinvent the founding of this country and what it was actually all about. The founding fathers, they had an opportunity to write a religious code just like most other nations in human history. All right, founded either on a monarch or a particular faith or a particular lineage. That's where most nations in human history are founded. Not America. We are the only country in the human history where there is a set of civic ideals that brought together a divided polyglot group of people 250 years ago, where freedom of conscience was a core belief set of our founding fathers, all the way to Thomas Jefferson. You know who he is? You know what document he signed?
The Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, and what was his belief system?
He was a deist.
He was a deist. Our third president, the man who signed this nation into existence, was a deist. Do you know who Benjamin Franklin is?
Yes.
Do you know what his belief system was?
He was Quaker, yes.
He was also a deist, similar to Thomas Jefferson. So what I think that we often do is we talk about U.S. history. I have a better suggestion. Let's actually consider reading U.S. history. Consider studying U.S. history. Learn the founding of our country, and that's what made our founders, I believe, the most extraordinary people known to the history of man. We would do well to actually respect their legacy rather than to reinvent some sort of imitative version of every other nation in human history. That's not us. I'm sorry, that's what makes America great, and that's why I am proud to be an American. This is the country that I will die fighting for if I have to, because it stands for those ideals, and that's why we're here.
Right. So
keep praying and pledge allegiance to the flag, my friend. Thank you.
Of course, Christ is king. But my response to that would be the same way that my church would let a practicing Hindu, a practicing Muslim, a practicing Jew come in and enter and worship with us on a Sunday morning. That person would not be allowed membership. And I'm not saying don't give other religions citizenship. I'm just saying you can have freedom of religion in an extremely religious environment. And that is what our founding fathers intended. If you look at the structure of our government, it is a replication, a mirror of the structure of Reformed churches in America in that time.
Absolutely. I think our nation was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. The question is, what are those values? They're the values enshrined in the Ten Commandments. Do we share those values in common? You're darn right we do. And I think that people of most faiths across this country share those values in common. What we're failing to do is actually standing for those values in the government as it actually runs. And so, what I suggest is study U.S. history, study what made the country great. And if you think Thomas Jefferson or Benjamin Franklin were not eligible to be founders or leaders of the country because they were deists, then you and I respectfully have a difference of opinion. And yet the beauty of our country is we're still able to have that difference of opinion and still call ourselves fellow citizens. Thank you, my friend, all right?
Thank you very much, Vivek. Have a great rest of your day. God bless you. Christ is king.
Thank you, my man, all right? Keep praying. Thank you. Last question. We'll give you the final word, ma'am.
Oh, no, that was our last one.
I'll close on this, guys. I want to just say this was a great evening with you guys. I love this because this is what our country was made for. Open dialogue, debate, discussion. Disagree with your friend. If I ask you to do one thing when you leave here over the next week is find somebody who actually disagrees with you, get dinner with them, and then find where you're actually able to persuade one another of what's actually true about the future of our country. That's the Ohio I grew up in. That's the America that I grew up in, and I believe that is the America that we still can create together. That's what Charlie Kirk worked to create with the Turning Point chapters that he has spawned across this country. We have an opportunity and I think an obligation to carry on that legacy. Last year was a year where we rightly said, fight, fight, fight. I think this is the year where we begin to say, unite, unite, unite. We don't have to be divided. We are stronger as a country when we share the ideals that birthed this nation in the first place. All right? Thank you, Montana State. We love you guys. God bless you and your families. And may God bless our United States of America. Thank you.